The devastating earthquake on 12th of January 2010 killed an estimated 200,000 and affected at least 3 million people, with up to 1 million people in urgent need of assistance and living in the open. The country has a disaster every year but never recovers sufficiently to fully prepare for the next one. On the way towards Port-au-Prince, we passed many relief organisations carrying containers of goods and a convoy of Canadian Army vehicles carrying heavy lifting machines. Inside Haiti, you are welcomed by a beautiful scenery with Haiti's largest lake on your right and a high mountain valley on your left. After the border post, the tarmac road turns to dirt and rock. The city itself was alive with people selling goods outside the earthquake-damaged buildings on the footpaths in order to keep themselves busy and to earn some income so that they could somehow support themselves and their families. There was an extraordinary amount of destruction in this highly dense city which had been built on mountains. From the top of one mountain, all you could see were houses practically on top of each other and no sight of any roads or streets. It immediately became apparent to us why so many people had lost their lives. All along the route to MGR's distribution centre, you can see the devastation the earthquake had caused, with so many buildings reduced to heaps of rubble or flattened in the space of less than a minute. However, to our astonishment, there were still many buildings in the city that were not affected by the earthquake. The conclusion was that most had been constructed with substandard materials using an incorrect cement sand mix with not enough reinforcement in it, which is why the walls probably crumbled to devastating effect. We actually saw a car that was crushed by the rubble of the buildings that had fallen on it, but we were amazed to know that it was still being driven around by locals. We witnessed reconstruction work being undertaken by the locals to rebuild what they could before the advent of the monsoon season, but it was difficult to determine whether they had received any external assistance from the international community swarming around them. It is extremely important that someone regulates the construction effort, and especially the earthquake proofing of future structures as occurred in other areas of the world, such as Kashmir. On one particular morning at the scene of a collapsed house, there was a lot of commotion and people with face masks and surgical gloves on were busy getting ready to take away another corpse retrieved from the rubble, and this was 6 weeks after the earthquake. The MGR team visited many tent villages where people were living in the temporary shelters and spoke to as many as we could. One lady called Marie feared that her life would not be back to normal again, because she had lost everything including her husband, but she still had to support her 4 young children. We also saw how the tents being used were being made ineffective when it rained heavily on the first night of our visit in the city. The area was inundated with rivers of water when the skies opened with their deluge, but the monsoon season has still to arrive. Once at MGR's main distribution point in the outskirts of the city, and upon leaving the comfort of our car, we walked outside in the dry dust which nearly choked us all. The gut-wrenching smell of death still lingered in many areas, so we were forced to cover our mouths with handkerchiefs. It was something that we will never forget for the rest of our lives. The MGR team managed to distribute relief items to the queues of men, women and children, anxiously waiting for the life-saving handouts at our distribution centre. The items distributed were bottles of water, milk cartons, a variety of fruit drinks, cooking oil, salt, rice, tinned fish, as well as cash donations. Each survivor knew that aid is distributed fairly at our distribution centre on a daily basis at approximately 6:30 p.m. local time, so they queued in a dignified manner until it was their turn to receive the relief items from the MGR team. Many local volunteers also assisted in the loading of vehicles and the distribution of relief items in other areas of the city. We are heavily reliant on our donors not to forget the desperate plight of the people of Haiti and to assist them in their time of immense need. We urgently need funds for food and water, costing £100 to last for a week. For the future, MGR plans to run its educational project in the form of a primary school, and this will cost about £2,000 to run per month. It will enable 10 teachers to be employed to teach 50 children. This will provide the teachers an income to support their families, and with the children at school, it will give their parents a chance to look for employment to rebuild their homes.